Welcome to a new horizon. A new horizon, and it's the book with the essential chapters of Joel Goldsmith. And we're looking at why is it so essential, the essentials of Joel, like the recommended chapters of Joel. Why are they so important? There must be a reason for it, that he calls it that way. And slowly but certainly we discover what it actually is. And today we look at the idea of contemplation and developing the beholder, and contemplation being a means to develop the beholder. And we looked at the idea of beholder before in one of the, I think the second or third meeting that we had. So today I'm focusing on wait a minute, this beholder, and does it need to be developed, or is it already there? Because we have to know how this actually works, and not only conceptually, but really also to discover what things mean that are being shared. Like, you can hear it. It's still words, they're not the truth itself, but they point in the direction of, or they can give you a hint of what it isn't, at least. So it is with contemplation, contemplation and beholder. It develops the beholder. But what is the beholder? So that is actually an interesting expression. Developing the beholder would be like to learn to not engage your mind. So the beholder is not the mind. No, the beholder is fine. There's just things in the way of the beholder. It is distracted, for instance. So that's not what the beholder is. So that's good to know. So contemplation develops the beholder. Makes perfect sense now. If you recognize it, that know what is in the way, what is distracting the consciousness, because that's what we're talking about, the consciousness. That's where this takes place, the realm of consciousness. So that is like, if I stay at my superficial level of consciousness, I'm distracted continuously by all the things that I think that need to happen in the world, the way that it should look, the way I should behave, and the way that that man behaves, as an example for my perfect behavior, you could say. So, and also all the temptations of thinking that there are needs that I need to have or need to go for, or thinking that something is missing in this moment. Now these parts, you could say, of these activities are ingredients for the distraction of your attention in your consciousness. Where do you focus on in your consciousness? On the superficial level of distractions, wishes, desires, intentions, accomplishments, status. Go on and on and on. The whole human, the whole human idea, in fact, the whole human, what do you call that? The whole human limitation, or the whole human realm. Now we're talking about this one big distraction from what really is. So now in this consciousness of yours, which is infinite, which is not defined by this little distraction on the surface, is continuously in our practice the invitation to go beyond the superficial level and sink deeper into your withinness, closing your eyes maybe, sitting still, contemplating, for instance. Contemplating to do what? What is contemplating in the first place? Well, that's a good question. I'm going to take a look at that too. But anyway, we are in our consciousness. We recognize the chatter on the surface of your consciousness, being distracted with superficial things. Now we're closing our eyes, turning off the five senses for just a second, while the mind still continues to try to distract or try to come up with ideas or try to solve problems that it's not capable of, or try to say come up with great ideas for future accomplishments or activities. All of this is in fact your choice, because you're this consciousness. You are the consciousness. You are actually deciding, I'm going to be distracted by this superficial stuff. The superficial stuff is not as superficial as you might think, or it might not be that what you think is superficial. That's a better way of saying it. Now, the superficial things are actually the things that matter totally to you, but these are superficial things. So all the things that have to do with past, with body identification, with the ephemeral, with changes, all that is in fact superficial, on the surface of your consciousness, superficial things. It is more like an if you would see it in neuroscience, it would be like a little thunderstorm in your mind, like not even specific in the content, like it doesn't really have a content. So it made images of what it thinks, and it thinks it needs those ingredients, but in the end, that's not at all what it needs. It has no needs. Realizing you're this consciousness, limitless, in perfect communication with the rest of the universe, which is, say, that's your moment by moment business, in fact. It doesn't need anything. It is complete and whole and perfect. So all the things that you came up with on the superficial level of your consciousness are images and ideas that have no source and that are totally in the way of you experiencing yourself as the wholeness that you are. Now, this is really important, of course. So now, developing a beholder by contemplation is more like this. It's like you're going to train, in fact, your consciousness to you making the right decision. I'm going to let go of these images. Jill says, mesmerism. It's like everything you see with your five senses is mesmerism. It has no real, say, substance to it. No, it is also not a creation of light. No, what it is mesmerism. That's a perfect word for it. It's like, what is mesmerism? It's like a dreamlike structure thing that is like a fata morgana, or something that can disappear just like that. Like it's like a shadow. Now the shadow occupies your mind terribly when you allow that to occur, and it seems to become your world. So literally this superficialness, all these things where I say it's superficial, but actually to you it might be very important because you occupy your mind with it the whole day, 24 hours a day, almost, except for the 2 minutes of meditation, or maybe half an hour of meditation a day, or maybe 2 hours, and for the rest you're distracted by that and really think that that is your existence and your world. Now this part then is something that needs to be undone. It's like you will have to let go of that in order to experience your completion. This is exactly what we call then the say development of the beholder. The beholder could be like an idea of consciousness itself. The beholder, you deciding to recognize your wholeness. Like your wholeness is already there. It is just for you, in fact, not to be distracted any longer by the superficiality of mortal mind. Now this transition, which is in fact the only essential happening in your existence, you could say, like this is the only thing that actually matters in your dream, is something that you try to postpone. You try to put it forward in time. You try not to let that happen, because it will be the end of your superficial part. You know, well, you call it an existence, and you call it humanness, mortal mind, that what you have and what you can lose, what you're protecting with all of your all of your being, you could say. So I completely lose track all the time in what I'm saying, but it should make sense in some way. But it's a delight to look at it like this, because it is in fact the 180-degree upside downness of this all. Say, oh yeah, there's a total paradox in this. That would be a good idea to say that. It's like there's a total paradox in this, in that you are offered complete salvation, you could say, complete atonement, complete recognition of who you truly are. And you say, well, let's wait with that. Not just now. Like, let's wait with that for just a second. Now, do that tomorrow. Not now. No, I first have to take care of this. I'm too much concerned with all the stuff that's going on in my life, and that is something that I need to do that first. Now, this is what you do in your humanness, in your existence. So this is interesting. So the interesting part continues then in using this book, in fact, to some way it will support, it will support you in your discovery of what is actually going on. Why is this essential chapters? Why are these so essential? And you see now, well, actually developing the beholder is an interesting part, because it is the thing, say the part of your consciousness that has to be centered in a certain sense and not be distracted. If it is centered in light, then it's fine. If it's not, then it is all over the place, say, coming into an illusory idea of itself. And seeing that as a reality, it's like completely psychotic, you could say. And yeah, so that's the path that we're walking then, is that you slowly but certainly start to see, oh my God, no, that is not it. No, I really thought it was something, or I really thought it mattered how this should look. And it also wouldn't matter what I do in my human existence. There's an essence to it. And then I say, like, no, well, the only point, in fact, why you come here for is to recognize this isn't it. I have an idea of perfection in my consciousness. There's an idea of perfection. I want to find that. The rest doesn't seem to satisfy me whatsoever. It's like I don't want to be distracted by that any longer. I want to find out who I truly am. Now, this is essential in our path, in fact. So certainly, slowly but certainly, we start to trust the part that is real about us, and let go of this wall of denial, you could say, this mortal mind idea that something is temporal, that I'm in temporal existence here on planet Earth, and I'm losing the ones that I love, and becoming sick, and say suffering through the limitation of life, and all this is only an ingredient of this superficial part that you have exchanged for the reality that you are, and there was no reason for it. And that's why the change can happen just like that, like in the twinkling of an eye. It can change. So you can be reborn, you could say. Each moment you can be reborn, recognizing the truth about what actually is going on. Well, some of us have this in their deathbed, looking back at their lives and saying like, that was meaningless what happened here. What was I thinking? I really thought that I could accomplish something, or that I was someone, or that I did this or did that. It's like I was fooling myself. And some find it in books that they read. Suddenly you catch a hint of that there's something else going on, and that strikes like a thunder, and you recognize, oh my God, this isn't it at all. And of course there are those too that suddenly undergo an experience that they seem to not have asked for, but they're thrown off their horse and completely discombobbled, discovering that there's such thing as a perfect unity in light. Like the soul experience, soul to Paul experience, knocked off the horse, recognizing the truth. He was killing Christians, and suddenly he shifts into, he's falling off his horse, completely penetrated by light, and recognizing the truth of himself in, oh, there's a God. Oh, I was killing Christians, but now I know better. It's like there's a God, and this is a God of love, of equality, of unity. It only is that, like it's the love of the universe. Now these are examples then that we encounter in the text of Joel, and in many books, of course, in many talks that are being held or being given. So it all refers to the same experience, in fact, because that's a universal experience. It's not something that happens only to Muslims, or something that only happens to Christians, or something that only happens to Zen Buddhists, or anything like that. It's like, no, this is about a universal experience. Because what are we talking about? Consciousness. Consciousness is no specialization. Consciousness is not objective. It has no attributes of matter, you could say. It has no form. No, it is a recognition of unity, equality, and complete connection with every aspect of creation. That is what is going on. And that has nothing to do with the specialization that we get ourselves into on this superficial level of existence. And so that's essential to recognize that too. Which is huge, of course. I mean, there are wars fighted on this day, wars fighted between groups of people that think that they're right in the way that they think about their God, how their God will help them in order to achieve a goal that is against the brother that is their savior. Well, that God does not exist, that God cannot be there, that God doesn't work like that. If we're talking here about a universal experience, it has to be yours, and it has to be all-inclusive, no specialization. A universal experience. All right, so this is the introduction to this. Now we start to really get into the chapter, and Joel writes a little bit that I'm going to read to you. Okay, so here he starts with the human picture. So in the human picture, practically everyone, almost without exception, and this is just basic logic, you know, it's nothing extraordinary. So in the human picture, practically everyone, almost without exception, rejoices at a birth and sorrows at a death. And you say, like, yes, of course. Nevertheless, Joel says, more trouble has been caused in the world by birth than ever has been caused by death. So if we were to judge from human appearances, we would be struck by the tragedies that take place as a result of birth, despite all the rejoicing and by the uselessness and futility of much of the sorrowing at death. These are extreme illustrations of how unwise it is to judge good and evil. Spiritually, however, judging as to good or evil goes far beyond being unwise. In a spiritual sense, it is absolutely wrong because there is a power that is within each one of us, and this power has its function the creating, maintaining and sustaining of harmony in our existence. And when, for any reason, harmony is apparently taken from our lives, its function is to restore it. Now that's an interesting expression, of course, that I would love to talk about a little bit. So it's like the human experience is one of good, not so good, bad, awful. So it has all kinds of different levels of experience, you could say. Like there are things that you wish and other things that are not so wished for. Like no, you don't want that to happen. So you have your whole spectrum of ideas, and you keep twisting and turning it around, what is good and what is not good and all of this, and we have all different ideas about it in our humanhood. Now, spiritually, there's no good and bad. And now that is interesting. So in this world, in the world of superficiality, is what we're talking about, it does totally matter what is good and what is wrong, right? It's like there's a whole law made with that. You should do this, but you shouldn't do that. And you can do that, but don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. And on and on and on. So what am I trying to say here is that these human laws have in fact nothing to do with the spiritual law of love, of unity, equality, and say recognizing yourself as a whole part of creation. Now, Joel says it here in a certain way. He uses it. He wants to use an extreme example to see like it doesn't make sense, good and evil and all of this. It's like that is not going to give you a definition of yourself, or it's not how God wants it to be, you could say. So we're continuing with some part of the chapter, but it's more like the transition that takes place. So in the developing of the beholder, if you're still distracted and occupied with an idea of good and bad, you still are on the superficial level. Even in your spiritual path, if you think, well, is this good to do or not good to do? It's like, no, you have to come to the place where you recognize, I have no idea what any of this is about. And because in fact, this is a very unfamiliar place to me. Like the human experience is a very unfamiliar experience to the truth of my existence. So I want to experience something else. And that's what that's where we're coming to. In the next part, let me see if I still. So the interesting part is then we actually go pretty fast into the idea of the kingdom, of not being of this world, of the I that I am. Yeah. So contemplation develops the beholder. My kingdom, the place where I live, move and have my being, is not of this world. Therefore I have nothing to do with this world except to know that it is not my kingdom. Now you see. So you see that the whole idea of good and evil and our occupation with it, like the superficiality of our minds, are really concerned with doing the right thing and evaluating ourselves if we did the right thing, like introspection we call it. It's like we really think that is very important. Now, you see, it's like, no, in fact, all this evaluation that you do, this analysis that you put on yourself, on your behavior, on the way that you think, is in fact of no importance. That sounds really interesting if I say it. Like, it has in fact no importance. No, that would only be another confirmation that the superficiality of your mind has any meaning or any importance in the process. It has not. So that's why Joel uses this too. It's like contemplation develops the beholder, and that is for this reason. It's like you actually start to recognize all this superficiality has no meaning. It doesn't give us nothing. Like it will not contribute anything. So recognizing what it is and letting it go, and say releasing that, will give us another opportunity. It's like coming to the place where you recognize my kingdom is not of this world, would say that idea is full of letting go of what you see, letting go of what you think, letting go of how you think everything is working. And all of this, it's like that is essential to have a moment, because that's what we're talking about, to have a real moment, a moment of presence, a moment of infinity, you could say, a moment of out of time, because that was where the book was made for. It's like, if you do these chapters well, it says in the beginning, if you do these chapters well, it's very possible for you to enter into the fourth dimension of experience. What is the fourth dimension of experience? That has nothing to do with this world. So it's like it gives you the opportunity to actually step out of time and have an experience of where you truly abide. That's what this is about. So everything that we read from now on, like in this chapter, is really beautiful. This is what you love, you know, to read. Like, I and my Father are one, and my kingdom is not of this world. And it's like, yeah, that's great. I love that. Beautiful ideas. So the practice then is a bit different. The practice is not just only lovely. No, the practice is having the discipline and the honesty to actually look at what you're doing, to see that, oh, wait a minute, oh yes, yeah, there I go again. I really was concerned about what to do or how to. I tried to make a plan to work it out for myself, and that's not necessary. It's like I got tempted to try to solve my own problems. No, this is just one example. Like, there's so much more. Or I've a concern about my body. My heart seems to do really weird things, and I'm really concerned about it. Now, what am I supposed to do? Would it be good to go to the doctor, or would it not? Do I not go to the doctor, and all this? So you are deciding that for yourself, and think that that decision gives you something. And so you deal with all your problems. You try to find a way to deal with it, because this is the way that you were raised in your limitation, forgetting the fact that you're not of this world, that your superficiality, literally your human existence, has no meaning, that it's nothing more than like an electron storm, you could say, an electron storm in your brain. And see, my face changes color all the time. So this is, yeah, this is essential. Can you see how essential this is? It's like, this is about the fundamentals again, like the fundamentals of what it is that is actually occurring in our transformational process. So that's really, really wonderful. But the examples that I come up with are, it's like, you will face them. Literally, you are a representation of everything that is not, in fact. So it's like, are you willing to let go of your superficial idea about yourself? The superficiality being an entity in time and space, walking around on planet Earth, trying to make the best of it, trying to enjoy a little bit. You know, are you willing to let go of that image that you have made of yourself? Because I'm not of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. So that means I'm not what I think I am. See, now we're getting to the fundamentals of all that is happening in a transformation. I have no idea who I am. Show me who I truly am. This is the question, or the invitation that you will put out at a certain point in your transformation. Because you can't define yourself if you were already created. The only thing you can make is an image of yourself. And that would be an image of limitation, because your definitions are limitations. This is the way you look. It is based on a past experience that is already out of the door, because there is no such thing as past. Now this is really good. So the next sheet, I got some sheets and they have to do with the essence of you. Like I said, that's really lovely to read, but it has practical consequences that you might not have thought about. See, therefore, I have nothing to do with this world except to know that it's not my kingdom. So, like I said, the most essential thing that happens in your existence, in your human life, is the fact that you come to the spot, like the time, the moment, in which you say, oh my God, this is not it. There must be something else. So some do that in 20 years of suffering through, or 30 or 40 or 50 or 80 years or 100 years of suffering. Finally coming to the spot where they say there must be an alternative. So now for you, you can decide that today. Now, since you've heard this, you can decide, yes, I want to wake up out of this dream of limitation. That's crazy. I cannot do that any longer. My kingdom is not of this world. I want to know who I really am. There must be an alternative. And there you go. It is I. Be not afraid. I, God, the only life. I, God, the life of individual being. And that life cannot be lost. It cannot be destroyed. Like it's not as a human life. It's not as a human experience. No. Let the storm do what it will. I cannot fear. It's like if I recognize this to be my truth, then what is there to fear? But up to that point, I am the manifestation of fear, because there will always be something that I can be afraid of, because this human experience is life-threatening, literally. So it is I. Be not afraid. So this is the center of your being speaking to you. It has nothing to do with the superficial definitions of yourself, or with any kind of idea that you hold, or that you have cherished for a moment. It has nothing to do with it. So don't be afraid. It is I. Here. So none of these things move me anymore. It's like the superficial things of existence don't move me anymore. My life is God. My life is in God. My life is with God. And neither life nor death can separate from God. Because in fact, in my recognition of this, there is no death. What could possibly die if I'm consciousness? My body definition of myself was just another image that I've made, that I try to preserve well and make look good, or do whatever I do to it, but it isn't me. It is not me. So it's like, what part of me can possibly die? It does not exist. It is I. Be not afraid. I am the life of you. I, God, the Spirit in you, is your life, your being, and the substance of your body. Now, Joel describes the body not as you see your body. So don't pick up a confusion around this. It's like, no, it is I, this consciousness, it is I. Be not afraid. I am the life of you. I, God, the Spirit of God in you, is your life, your being. It is in you. It is not outside of you. It is not a substance like it's not a form. No. So here are some essentials. So we're going to come to the center of this, of your experience, like contemplation develops the beholder. So I contemplate the idea of, it is I, don't be afraid. It is I, don't be afraid. Like the center of my consciousness is I. Like literally that is within me, it's not anywhere else. So within me is very broad, like it's all encompassing, it's all, it has to do with your allness. So it's not as you see your withinness. See how interesting that is with words? Now you thought that something was within you as you know yourself. No, it is not. No, it is I, in the center of your consciousness. Where's the center of your consciousness? Try to find that now. Where's the center of my consciousness? Is that a place? Is that a point? No, it's not. It's the center. It's the center of your consciousness. And where's that center? Can I find that? See, that's really interesting, because you cannot avoid thinking with your human mind and trying to make an image of it. Well, explain it to me so I can understand. Well, that's not understandable. It's the center of your being. Yeah, but where's the center of my being? Well, it is the center of your being. You don't have to be concerned about it, where it is or how it will look, because your image of it will not be it either. So you bounce against the walls of limitation, you could say, continuously, with trying to have an understanding of what actually is going on, or what actually Joel is meaning with the words that he gives us in the book. How would I know what the center of my being is, of the individual experience of being? What is that? Like, there's no definition to give around that. So we use words, like I said in the beginning, we use words to point in a direction, but the words itself is not the truth. Now, coming back to yourself, going within, contemplating an idea is contemplation develops the beholder. It is I, don't be afraid. Now I'm going to look for that I. I want to find that I, because that's where this seems to be all about, right? It is all about the I. Now, how can I find that? It's like, well, there's no way for me to find that. It's like, well, now I feel totally excluded from this. I'm given something that I cannot find. It's like, yes, indeed, that's right. How does this work then? How can I possibly come to an experience? It's like, well, the understanding is not essential for you experiencing the center of your being. So it is more like you allow that to come to you. It will come to you. You cannot come to it. That would be the right direction. It's like you can recognize for yourself, I'm not of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. So at least I know that. It's like all of the definitions I gave myself and all the possible ways that I'm holding on to past ideas are not it. I'm releasing them for just a moment. Now that is the only requirement. Truth is already present. It's waiting for you to, in fact, to return. But you cannot do that yourself. No, the only requirement for you is to be open and willing to let that occur and let it come to you. It's the same as, you might have heard that before too, it's like the idea of looking for your happiness, and you do everything you can to look for your happiness in your existence. And in the moment that you actually give up looking for it, suddenly it could come to you. So this is the same thing. It's like that is the only way that anything can come to you. Give up looking for it. Being willing to receive it, but give up looking for it. In your giving up, the active mind giving up, is actually where it can come to you. So that's another great thing then. So we learned a lot today. That's already wonderful. It's like, that's a new horizon right there. It is the new discovery of I'm not of this world. And so this world, one other aspect, and I was talking about it a little bit just a moment ago, with the world religions, for instance. Like, as long as there is an idea of victory, Joel says, as long as there is an idea of victory, like say universal consciousness of God is far away. Like, it cannot enter into a mind that is looking for victory, of in fact winning. It wants to win from some other group or some other thing. Now, in the world religions, that is still an actual activity that's being employed. So it's like you want to be the winner of it. You want to have a victory over someone else who isn't right, and you know better. Like this, it's like a clash of minds, of dogma, a clash of dogma, a clash of absolute insanity, you could say. Because in your recognition that this victory would always be a loss, that would never lead to anything, it would not be a help to come to the discovery of equality and unity. There are different means to do that. Well, here's the total option for that. That is literally given here in this chapter. So that's how essential that is. So I have one more sheet that I like to share. That's this one. When victory is no longer your goal, spiritual power will reveal itself to you. Now, spiritual power, that we didn't talk about that yet. So when victory is no longer your goal, spiritual power can reveal itself to you. Now, that's an interesting expression too. So when victory is no longer your goal, spiritual power will reveal itself to you. That's a really interesting expression, especially I'm just using, in fact, I'm using the world religions right now because there's so much stuff going on in all of this. Like thinking that you use spiritual power, like power from God, to win from another party and to do whatever you want with them in order to achieve that. It's like, well, as long as you think that there's such thing as a victory over someone, you're far from it. Like, you will not know what spiritual power is. Now the question is then, how can I experience spiritual power? Like, you would love to experience that, right? The true power that must be present because it literally creates everything that really exists. So it must be a tremendous power. And it's the one power. It does not have an opposite. Now here is the part that is like not so interesting for the human experience, for the ones that believe that the human experience is, say, imbued with God, you could say, of having spiritual powers. Because it's like, no, it doesn't know opposites. No, there's no way of winning in a situation where you discover your equals. No. So what do we do in order to discover our unity and our connection? And how can this spiritual power come to us? Now, this is really beautiful. So, in fact, and Joel shares this many times too, it is like the idea of, here's forgiveness. Forgiveness is every kind of idea, letting go of any kind of idea that you hold about your brother, thinking that he's different, thinking that he's special, thinking that he is not the same as you because of how you see yourself. Like in a comparison with yourself, you see there's a difference. And so forgiveness can be that you think somebody did something to you. That's another part. Like you think that someone did something to you and needs to be forgiven for that, or needs to forgive you for Anyway, so like it's like this keeps you busy as a human being. It's like you start to practice forgiveness, and in your spiritual path you develop that a little bit in terms of, well, I don't know exactly how it works, but I need to forgive here, however that looks. And it's like, well, you see, the part that actually is would be the forgiveness part, truly, is the place where you start to recognize your unity and oneness with your brother. It's the equality. There's no difference. There's nobody doing anything to you. No, we're equal. We're equal in God, because I'm not of this world. There is no such thing as past. So how on earth could it affect me? Now, admitting to that is an action that you can do, and you will experience the say the unity. You will experience the oneness with God. You will experience that in that lies my truth. In that I can experience spiritual power. That is literally given to me, not to use against anything, no, to say, in fact, be completely swallowed up by it, to completely melt into that, seeing that it literally unites every aspect of the sonship, whether it was a previous Christian, a previous Muslim, a previous whatever kind of religion you can come up with. It has nothing to do with that. It's like the equality is, and the unity is not an action. No, it's a recognition of what is. It is I. Be not afraid. There's nothing against you. There's nothing to challenge. There's nothing to, say, revolt against. None of that exists. That was only on the superficial level of existence that you thought had a meaning, and that you, say, switched over into your reality. So this is from, yeah, this is from the same chapter, but a little bit further. So on page 53. So it will be that unless I am lifted out of this life, I will be here 1,000 years from now, even though the form may be very different. As a matter of fact, the sex could be different. The reason is that I, and this applies to every one of us, I has no sex, like no gender. Once you become aware of the I that you are, you will find it completely independent of body and completely independent of sex, manifesting as either sex, even though it will still be I, and that is because I is spiritual. I is one with God. I is the nature of God. Therefore, it is without finite form. Yet I can manifest as in or through finite form, but that still would have nothing to do with any kind of reality in that sense. So what Joel is saying here is like, this is another construct that we have made, thinking in terms of differences, female, male, you know, all the varieties that are, say, accessible these days. I'm saying this, like, that still, no matter how that manifests itself, it still has nothing to do with the I. It has nothing to do with the I, because it's like, no, it's genderless. It doesn't have a gender. It has no concern with the body. It is not defined by any of those limited ideas, and not by any temporal idea. So the I is unlimited. It is your portal into timelessness, and that is an experience. It has nothing to do with the definition. In fact, we celebrate that every time that we meet. It's like we meet in the I, and you cannot see that. You can only experience that. So join in. let go of your ideas, of all your limitations for just a moment and experience something else. This I is not a mystery. No, the I is truly what you are. But for you, having exchanged that with the limitation and limited ideas about yourself, it seems to be unreachable. Like you will never get to it. And of course, Joel says, if you still confuse the two, if you still think that the finite form of you is the only thing that really exists, you can be here for a very long time. But when you realize I'm not of this world, it can be over in an instant, just like that. So every meeting that we have, every time we come together in a new horizon, this new horizon is not on Earth. This horizon is literally the dawning of your, say, open, whole consciousness. The Son of God, the Christ mind, as you could say, is like it is an integral part of Trinity. That is what is developing here. It's like your awareness of the Trinity that you're a whole part of, the I that you don't have to be afraid of. It is what you are. All right, so this was the chapter 4, was it? Yeah, chapter 4 of the A New Horizon. And it's always good to let this settle in a little bit. So I will, in the meeting here, play some music to in fact, and I'll show some sheets too, so to in fact to contemplate this, because it's like in contemplation it is quiet, it is restful, it is taking time to not to think about it, no, to let some meaning come to you. It's like, it is I, don't be afraid. Well, let that come to me, what that actually means, because it is mysterious to me when I hear it with my ears, but my heart might recognize it easily. So that's why we contemplate. That develops my, say, awareness of what's actually going on in my consciousness. So thank you so much for being present here, and I hope to see you next week in the next chapter. Thank you so much.